Good evening. Welcome to part 13 of our Middle-earth-inspired series. This is the third story in the Enchanted Forests, the Shifting Glade. Let's begin. The forest stirred as the companions pressed deeper into its labyrinthine heart, the shifting light filtering through the dense canopy above, casting ever-changing patterns on the ground. Orlen felt the pulse of the seed in his pocket grow stronger, its warmth steady but insistent, a quiet rhythm that seemed to guide his steps. The path ahead twisted unpredictably, narrowing into a corridor of intertwined roots and branches that seemed to ripple as though alive. Cyrana led the way, the keeper's staff glowing faintly in her hand, its light steady but muted as though it struggled against the weight of the forest's magic. Adric followed close behind, his staff brushing the ground with each step, the runes along its length shimmering faintly in response to the hum of the forest. Calen lingered at the rear, his movements hesitant, his gaze darting nervously to the shadows that flickered at the edge of their vision. The air grew cooler as they advanced, carrying with it a faint metallic tang that prickled at Orlen's senses. The glowing stones that had guided them earlier were gone now, their light extinguished as though the forest had decided they were no longer needed. Instead, the path ahead was marked by faint traces of silvery light that shimmered on the ground like moonlight on water. "This place is changing," Adric murmured, his voice low but clear in the stillness. "The forest is leading us somewhere." Orlen nodded, the seed's pulse a quiet affirmation in his hand. "It knows we're here," he said, softly, "and it's watching us." The corridor opened suddenly into a vast glade, its boundaries marked by towering trees whose branches intertwined overhead to form a natural dome. The air was thick with magic, a palpable presence that made Orlen's chest tighten. At the center of the glade stood a single tree, smaller than the others but radiating an otherworldly light that bathed the clearing in a soft, golden glow. Its bark was smooth and silver, and its branches were bare, their tips glistening with tiny droplets of light that hung like stars frozen in mid-air. The companions paused at the edge of the glade, their gazes fixed on the tree. "This isn't just another part of the forest," Cyrana said quietly, her grip on the staff tightening. "This is something else. Something ancient." As they stepped into the glade, the air grew warmer and the faint hum of the forest deepened into a low, resonant tone that vibrated through the ground. Orlen felt the seed's pulse quicken, its warmth spreading through him like a quiet reassurance. The tree at the center of the glade seemed to shimmer as they approached, its light intensifying with each step. When they were only a few paces away, the air around the tree shifted, and a figure emerged from its trunk as though stepping out of the very wood itself. The figure was tall and slender, their form wreathed in a soft, golden light that obscured their features but did not diminish their presence. They carried no weapon, but their movements radiated a quiet strength, and their voice, when they spoke, was low and melodic, resonating like the forest's hum. "Travelers," the figure said, their gaze sweeping over the companions. "You have come far, guided by the relics you carry. But the path you walk is not yours alone. The forest has a will of its own, and it seeks to know your purpose." Orlen stepped forward hesitantly, his hand brushing against the seed in his pocket. "We're searching for answers," he said, his voice steady despite the unease that gripped him. "The relics, the seed, they're leading us somewhere, but we don't know why." The figure tilted their head slightly, their light flickering like the glow of a distant star. "The seed is the heart of the forest," they said. It carries the memory of all that has passed through this land, the triumphs and the sorrows, the light and the shadow. To carry it is to bear the weight of the forest's legacy. Do you understand what that means? Cyrana stepped forward, her gaze sharp. We don't have all the answers, she said firmly. But we're not turning back. Whatever the seed's purpose is, we'll see it through. The figure regarded her for a moment, their expression unreadable but calm. Resolve alone will not be enough, they said. The forest tests those who walk its paths, not to punish but to reveal. Each of you carries more than you realize, and the forest will show you what you must see. The light of the tree flared brightly, and the air around the companions shimmered. Orlen felt the ground shift beneath him, and the world dissolved into a swirling haze of golden light. When the light faded, he found himself alone in a clearing that was both familiar and strange, the hum of the forest replaced by an eerie silence. The seed in his pocket pulsed faintly, its warmth a quiet reminder that he was not entirely alone. This is the forest's test, he thought, his pulse quickening as he glanced around the clearing. But what is it trying to show me? The clearing stretched endlessly around Orlen, a surreal landscape of golden light and shifting shadows that seemed to pulse in time with the faint hum of the seed in his pocket. The towering trees that marked the edges of the glade leaned inward, their branches forming an intricate lattice that seemed to shift and flow with each breath he took. Orlen's steps were cautious as he moved forward, the ground beneath him soft and mossy, his every footfall absorbed into the eerie stillness of the place. The air was warm, yet it carried a faint chill that prickled at his skin, and he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. This is the forest's test, he murmured to himself, his voice barely audible in the oppressive quiet. But what does it want me to do? Ahead, the glade narrowed into a winding path that twisted like a serpent through the trees, its edges lined with faintly glowing stones that pulsed softly in rhythm with the seed. Orlen followed the path, his heart pounding as the silence deepened, the hum of the forest fading into an almost imperceptible whisper. The path curved sharply, and as he rounded the bend, he stopped abruptly, his breath catching in his throat. Before him stood a figure cloaked in shadow, its form indistinct but undeniably familiar. It was tall and slender, its edges blurred as though it were a reflection on rippling water, and its presence sent a shiver down Orlen's spine. The figure didn't move, its shadowy form rooted to the spot as Orlen took a cautious step forward. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice trembling slightly. The figure tilted its head, its outline flickering like a flame caught in a breeze. "I am what you fear," it said, its voice low and resonant, echoing through the glade. "I am what you doubt, and I am what you must face." Orlen's hand instinctively went to the seed in his pocket, its warmth a quiet reassurance against the chill that crept through him. "I don't understand," he said, his voice unsteady. "What do you mean?" The figure took a step closer, its movements slow and deliberate, its form growing sharper with each step. "The relics chose you," it said. "But choice alone does not make you worthy. The forest seeks to know your truth, your strength and your weakness. Only then will you understand the path you walk." Orlen's chest tightened as the figure's shadow stretched toward him, its edges curling like smoke. The seed in his pocket grew warmer, its pulse quickening, and he clenched it tightly in his hand, its light seeping through his fingers like liquid gold. The figure paused, its flickering form stilling as the light of the seed illuminated the glade. "You carry the heart of the forest," it said, its tone softer now but no less intense. "It is a burden and a gift. To wield its power, you must first understand its cost." The shadow shifted, its edges dissolving into the air, and Orlen felt a wave of warmth wash over him, the oppressive chill lifting as the path ahead began to brighten. The glade shimmered, the golden light deepening as the shadows faded, and Orlen felt the ground beneath him grow steady. The figure was gone, replaced by the faint hum of the forest that had been absent moments before, and the path ahead was clear once more. He exhaled slowly, his grip on the seed loosening as its pulse returned to a steady rhythm. "The forest isn't just testing us," he thought, his mind racing. "It's trying to prepare us." He moved forward, the light of the path guiding him as the glade began to shift again, its edges dissolving into a swirling haze of golden mist. When the mist cleared, Orlen found himself back in the central glade, the silver tree standing tall and radiant at its center. Cyrana, Adric and Calen stood nearby, their expressions tense but unshaken. Cyrana's grip on the keeper's staff was firm, its light glowing brighter than before, while Adric's staff hummed faintly, its runes shimmering like starlight. Calen looked pale, his eyes darting nervously to the edges of the glade, but he stood steady, his presence resolute despite his unease. "You're back," Cyrana said, her voice calm but edged with curiosity. "What did you see?" Orlen hesitated, his thoughts still swirling with the figure's words. "It was a shadow," he said finally. "Something that spoke of fear and doubt. It said the forest was trying to understand us, to test if we're worthy." Adric nodded thoughtfully, his gaze fixed on the silver tree. "The forest remembers everything," he said. "Its magic is ancient, older than even the keepers. If it's guiding us, it's because it sees something in us, something that we don't yet see in ourselves." The air around them grew warmer, and the light of the tree flared brightly, its branches shimmering like molten silver. The figure from before emerged once more, its form less defined but no less commanding, and its voice carried a quiet strength that resonated through the glade. "You have faced the forest's test," it said, "and you have been seen. Your path is uncertain, but the heart of the forest walks with you. Protect it, and it will protect you." The light of the tree dimmed, and the figure dissolved into the air, its presence lingering like a fading echo. The companions stood in silence for a moment, their gazes fixed on the silver tree as its glow softened into a steady golden light. "We should move," Cyrana said at last, her voice steady but firm. "The forest has given us what it can. Now it's up to us." Orlen nodded, the seed in his pocket a quiet reminder of the burden they carried. Together they stepped out of the glade, the forest closing in around them as they pressed deeper into its shifting heart, their resolve unspoken but unwavering. The air grew heavier as the companions left the central glade, the light of the silver tree fading behind them as the forest's shadows closed in once more. The path ahead twisted and turned unpredictably, its edges marked by faint traces of silvery light that flickered like distant stars. Orlen felt the seed's pulse steady in his pocket, its warmth a quiet reassurance as they moved deeper into the shifting wilderness. Cyrana led the way, the keeper's staff glowing faintly in her hand, its light cutting through the dense shadows that pressed close around them. Adric followed, his staff humming softly as though resonating with the forest's magic, while Calen brought up the rear, his steps cautious and his gaze darting nervously to the shifting shapes that moved just beyond the edge of his vision. The forest seemed to change with every step, the towering trees swaying gently as though alive, their branches twisting into patterns that formed and dissolved like ripples on water. The hum of the forest deepened, a low, resonant tone that vibrated through the ground and filled the air with an energy that made Orlen's chest tighten. The path grew narrower, the glowing stones that had marked their way becoming more sporadic, their light dim and uncertain. "This place doesn't want us here," Calen murmured, his voice barely audible. Cyrana glanced back at him, her expression sharp but calm. "The forest isn't trying to stop us," she said. "It's testing us." The path opened suddenly into another glade, this one smaller and darker, its edges marked by massive stones that jutted out of the ground like jagged teeth. At the center of the glade stood a stone archway, its surface etched with runes that glowed faintly in the dim light. The air around the archway was thick with magic, a palpable presence that made Orlen's skin prickle. "This is it," Adric said quietly, his gaze fixed on the archway. "The forest's heart, the place it's been guiding us to." Orlen felt the seed in his pocket grow warmer, its pulse quickening as though in recognition. As they stepped into the glade, the hum of the forest grew louder, resonating through the stones and the air with a power that seemed to ripple through their very bones. Cyrana approached the archway cautiously, her grip on the keeper's staff tightening as its light flared briefly before dimming again. "There's something here," she said, her voice low but steady. Orlen followed her, his gaze fixed on the runes that shimmered and shifted along the surface of the archway. The seed in his pocket pulsed in time with the glow of the runes, and he felt a strange pull as though the archway itself was calling to him. The air grew colder, and the shadows around the glade deepened as a figure emerged from the archway, its form cloaked in shadow but outlined by a faint, golden light. The figure was tall and regal, its presence commanding yet serene, and its voice, when it spoke, was deep and melodic, resonating with the hum of the forest. "You have come far," the figure said, its gaze sweeping over the companions. "The forest has seen your strength, your resolve, and your fear. It has tested you, and you have endured, but your journey is far from over." Orlen stepped forward hesitantly, the seed in his pocket growing almost unbearably warm as he faced the figure. "What does the forest want from us?" he asked, his voice trembling slightly. The figure tilted its head, its light flickering faintly. "The seed you carry is the heart of the forest," it said. "It is life, memory, and magic, a fragment of a greater whole. To carry it is to bear the weight of the forest's will. It will guide you, but it will also test you. Its power is not without cost." The runes on the archway flared brightly, their light illuminating the glade as the figure stepped closer. "The shadows that follow you seek to destroy what the seed protects," the figure said. "They are relentless, and they will not stop until the light you carry is extinguished. You must be ready to face them, to protect the seed and the light it holds, for without it, the forest will fall and the balance it guards will be lost." The figure paused, its gaze resting on Orlen. "The seed has chosen you. You must choose whether to trust it." The air grew warmer, and the hum of the forest deepened into a low, harmonious tone as the figure began to fade, its light dissolving into the glow of the runes. The archway shimmered, its surface rippling like water as the runes shifted and flowed into new patterns. Cyrana stepped forward, her expression hard but resolute. "This is the forest's gift," she said, "and its warning." Adric nodded, his gaze thoughtful. "The seed will guide us," he said, "but it won't do the work for us. That's up to us." Orlen slipped the seed back into his pocket, its pulse steady against his palm as he turned to the others. "Then we keep moving," he said, his voice steady. The companions stepped through the archway, the light of the runes flaring briefly as they passed, and the hum of the forest faded into a quiet stillness. The path ahead was shrouded in shadow, the glowing stones faint and sporadic, but the companions moved forward with quiet determination. The forest's trials were behind them, but its mysteries were far from over, and the light they carried would guide them through the darkness yet to come.